Hello everyone, I'm Braw Mithra. This, Massive Darkness 2. Massive Darkness 2 is a cool mini or not game, right? Cool mini or not games are just huge when you back them on Kickstarter. They just give you so much stuff in stretch goals, right? Their business model usually seems to be convince you to buy something because the stretch goals that you get will be worth it if you miss out, right? They really attack the FOMO, right? That's what they really want from you. They want to make sure that you feel you're missing out if you don't back the Kickstarter, because the Kickstarter is such a good deal and all those things. Well, Massive Darkness 2 is the sequel to the original Massive Darkness, which I also have. Now, I'm making a series of videos on Massive Darkness 2. Now, why would someone do multiple videos on something? Normally, what I do is I do an intro, and then I do the gameplay, and I do episodic campaigns. That's what my channel is. It's mostly Kingdom Death Monster. And Massive Darkness as a whole was pitched as a campaign game, but you would need the expansion in order to play the campaign of Massive Darkness 2. But if you got that expansion with the Kickstarter, and then you got the base game, and you got all the stretch goals and everything, then there was multiple campaigns that were included in this Kickstarter. There was, like, Rainbow Crossing was another campaign. And then the stretch goals, they had all the stretch goals would be compatible with the original game, right? There was an upgrade kit where you could make all of this compatible with this game. And you just have massive darkness. But there was even more than that. So what I wanted to do with this intro, so here's how YouTube would work, right? You watch a normal YouTube person, and they're going to tell you to make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you do all those things, and then I'm going to tell you all this stuff, and at the very end of the video, you have to watch all the way to the end, and I'm going to hide it in there, and my review, my opinion will be locked in the middle somewhere, not almost near the end, but not near the end. So I kind of want to make you watch the whole video. I don't care about any of that stuff, right? I guess I'm not a good YouTuber. I guess I'm not a good person to make YouTube videos. I don't make marketable, algorithmic, amazing videos. Massive Darkness 2, the game is fine. There you go. That's my review of it. It's fine. It's exactly what I expected from it. So, that's why I wanted to do this intro. What is Massive Darkness 2 to me, right? Massive Darkness 2, I don't think you can ever review it properly when you have someone in my situation, correct? I'm going to show you gameplay, right? This will be the part one. There's going to be 2 parts of gameplay. It's a long game. I decided, originally, I played the original Massive Darkness, right? Or Massive Darkness 2. I played it. I used some of the stretch goal stuff. I wanted to stick to base game, because that's how I look at Kingdom Death, right? If you watch my Kingdom Death videos, I always want to play all by the rules. I want to do everything correct, so my videos represent what you could also have, right? With these Massive Darkness and these Cool Mini or Not games, the reason why I backed it was Massive Darkness is a dungeon crawl game, right? They are this game. When I originally backed the original Massive Darkness, what I wanted was something that was like what I grew up on, right? And what I grew up on was this game. Was Warhammer Quest. This is my original copy of Warhammer Quest. I love Warhammer Quest. I also played a ton of HeroQuest, but Warhammer Quest is more of a dungeon crawl. HeroQuest was great. HeroQuest is more D&D, right? I grew up playing D&D. HeroQuest is more of that. Hero's Quest, you needed a dungeon master, right? You needed a Zargon. You needed someone to sit down and play. To run the monsters, to run the encounters, to reveal all the terrain. You needed that. HeroQuest doesn't work without that. There's probably apps now. I think the new Kickstarter, which I also have, I have the new Kickstarter. The reason why I backed the Kickstarter is I didn't want... HeroQuest to me is not what I wanted to play solo, right? HeroQuest to me is I want to sit down and play with the friends who I used to play with, who I still have contact, the people I grew up with. I want to play with them. I want to play that new HeroQuest again. Because the new HeroQuest that was on Pulse, Hasbro Pulse, gave the expansions. I never played those expansions. They were impossible to get. So I wanted to play... That's why I backed the new HeroQuest. See, there's reasons why people back games. It's not always because... It's not as simple as this looks like a good game sometimes. So I backed Massive Darkness knowing that I owned Massive Darkness 1. That is why I backed Massive Darkness 2. Not because I particularly liked Massive Darkness. I didn't think Massive Darkness was that great. But the idea of having another Warhammer Quest, and this game is nothing like really it's designed like Warhammer Quest, but Warhammer Quest came with adventure books. This is the... You had the same thing here. Warhammer Quest was made by, well, obviously Games Workshop, right? So you have the typical 2-hit charts and all those things. You have your record sheet, and this is it. You just have a book here that you run all your adventures. That is rule book. The game comes with a rule book. This is how you play. It's a different book. It's not the adventure book. But then also, it came with a role-playing book, right? This was the role-playing book. This was how, if you wanted to role-play out the game, like D&D, it has charts in here for all the adaptable things, right? So here, Skaven are in here, right? Skaven are in the actual game, but any one of the Warhammer, all the fantasy Warhammer, if you had those lines, the rules were in here. All the charts, you could use them. They're all in here. Any of those armies, any of those factions, all those minis, they're all here. And they all have special rules. This is like a monster manual. It's like a DMG that was included with that game. The variety and openness that Warhammer Quest provided to someone who also played Warhammer Fantasy. It was just, that was the idea to me, was... Look at this massive game. It's a massive system. I can do whatever I want with it. I can play however it is I want. I can use all of my Warhammer Fantasy minis. I can play them with the role player book in the Warhammer Quest system. That's those alternate use of what you already own, right? Alternative, giving more value to alternative use. I think I want to touch on some other things that I feel like sometimes I might have let people down, right? And this goes back to me not probably being your average YouTube person, right? Everybody, the average YouTube people, the amount of time, the reason why I broke this up into 3 videos as well is the gameplay videos are long, right? They ended up being really long. It's going to be close to 3 hours for those for the campaign, right? Because what I decided to do was run the first quest, just in case people wanted to see more. Then I'm running the legit intro, the prologue for the entire game, and it's a long prologue, right? Things didn't work out so well for me sometimes, and it took longer, right? And when I go through and I edit and I make sure that I find all the rules mistakes, because I made rules mistakes in this gameplay video. Minor ones that have to do with the wandering monsters and things, because they all work independent. And I made sure to go through and I try to highlight and I edit all the graphics in. I give this the same thing that I do for my Kingdom Death videos. I gave this the same thing for Massive Darkness. I gave it that you'll have a HUD on the bottom of the screen, and you'll have all the information is right there for you. And you don't have to try to track and look around on the board to make sure I'm playing it right or whatever. If I make a rules mistake, I made sure to edit it. I had to watch all back my footage. What I could have done was just record it from the top down like I do. Just record the top down, record me playing, and then just said screw it. Right? Whatever rules mistakes, whatever comments will point it out. I don't need to give a true representation of the game. That's the thing that's different about me, right? Context is so important to the things that I want to say. I made a whole video. There's a channel intro video, or there's an intro video for my channel, where I talk about open world and sandbox and and roguelike games and things that have random generation. Those are the kinds of things that I enjoy. It's why I enjoy Kingdom Death, because of the massive amounts of possibilities. So here's what I say. It's not like, so when I give a review on something, I'm giving my opinion of what it was that I wanted to get from the game. And this includes when I said Townsfolk Tussle, right? So I feel bad if some people took that, because I just started YouTube when Townsfolk Tussle hit Kickstarter and stuff. Townsfolk Tussle is a great game. I should have been more specific on what I expected from Townsfolk Tussle, right? Townsfolk Tussle it plays like Kingdom Death. It is pretty much a Kingdom Death system, right? You use AI cards and all that stuff, and it runs exactly the same. They flow exactly down the same. The gear cards are all the same. If you play Kingdom Death, you can play Townsfolk Tussle. It's the same way. If you can play Townsfolk Tussle, you can play Kingdom Death. It works both ways. That's how similar they are. But I was not getting Townsfolk Tussle to replace Kingdom Death. I was using it to play with my D&D group, right? See, board games are a whole thing to people, right? There's D&D, and I was using Townsfolk Tussle to replace like Arcadia Quest or something like that, right? Something that my D&D group, when we're done with the session, we still want to hang around for another hour or so, then we just play Townsfolk Tussle. Or usually we played Arcadia Quest or Massive Darkness too, right? Those are the kinds of things. So it's not like I'm reviewing and saying, oh, this game is just great regardless. It's not a vague, this game is good or this game is bad, right? I review it from the standpoint of which I will use it and how I enjoy it. So the representation of what I'm about to show you in the gameplay videos that I'm going to put up right after this video for Massive Darkness 2 are representative of how I want to use it. And how do I want to use it? Well, I also own all of Zombicide, right? I own all of Zombicide Black Plague. I own all of it. I kickstarted all of it. All of Zombicide is available for me to use. All the original Massive Darkness available for me to use. The campaign, right? I have all these campaign cards. Of course I'm going to play a campaign game. What else am I going to do? Well, like I said, I own all of the green, or this is actually original Black Plague. That's the Green Horde. But I own all of Black Plague stuff. I have the stuff for Zombicide, just the single releases. Same goes for more just single box releases. Abominations. Here's the Rainbow Crossing I was talking about. This one I actually did not include. I forgot about it. I put it off to the side and just thought of it as a box of miniatures, which is all what this stuff is, right? Here's the Massive Darkness 2, the Kickstarter pledge, just boxes of miniatures. What do we have here? More classes, just boxes of miniatures. Original Massive Darkness, boxes of miniatures, boxes of miniatures, boxes of miniatures. What is this? More boxes of miniatures. I can't even see anymore. Yeah. So this is what I would do with Massive Darkness. I enjoy it. So the representation of what you'll get from gameplay is not going to be replicated, right? The stuff that I fight, I know I fought, because I've already, like I said, I've recorded the gameplay. I know there's some Zombicide stuff in there. I know there's original Massive Darkness stuff in there. I know there's Green Horde. I know there's that stuff in there. I know that there's these individual Kickstarter only boxes monsters that spawn, right? I know these spawn during there. So all these original Massive Darkness stretch goals spawn. I know they do. And I used the decks, and the decks of cards are huge, right? So, additive value is how I would review this game, right? Is there some way to say that a game that I backed, and I play D&D, tons and tons of D&D. What I was originally doing with all these Massive Darkness, as I said, my group didn't really enjoy Massive Darkness. I didn't really enjoy it either. It was kind of like a wonky system, not a bad system. It was just a long game, and that's what happened with this, because I played the original prologue from Massive Darkness, so the mission is really long, but it was just long and slow. This is much faster, and it's got randomized treasure. It's a much cleaner system, much more streamlined. It's much nicer. It's much easier to play. It's much easier to table. But it's not going to be for, I'm not saying it's going to be for everybody, right? I don't think you would want to play Massive Darkness with somebody who doesn't want to already play Zombicide. If someone doesn't want to play Zombicide, I don't think they want to play Massive Darkness. If someone doesn't like D&D role-playing board games where you dungeon crawl, they're not going to want to play Massive Darkness, right? That's just it. I wouldn't even force it on them. I wouldn't even say I wouldn't even suggest it to someone. So how do you review something like that? How do you review, should I say that if you enjoy exactly what Massive Darkness is, what it represents, what it is to board gaming, to the dungeon crawling, to the massive amounts of miniatures, to the dice chucking, to the Ameritrash, if you enjoy that, then yeah, this is exactly that, so yeah, you'll enjoy it. But if you don't enjoy it, then you won't. Is that a fair review? Probably not, right? But if you're someone who backs all this Zombicide, or say you have all this Zombicide and the game's kind of getting old, and you'd be like, well, you know what, maybe I want to dungeon crawl, right? Or maybe I want to try to get into D&D. I think Massive Darkness would get you into D&D. It's not exactly like D&D at all, because you don't roleplay or whatever, but the setting and everything and what D&D mostly is if you're running a dungeon crawl, it's those kind of things. Like, again, what I wanted from it was a Warhammer Quest, and that's what I feel I got from it. It's a very light Warhammer Quest. It's a more basic version of it. It's not, you don't need to read charts on charts on charts and go 5 deep with pages of rules. Those wandering monsters have rules that they have rules that play only to themselves, which got me in a little bit of trouble with one of the monsters, which I'll made note of when I was editing it and everything. But again, so that's what Massive Darkness is. And I think I got exactly what I wanted from it. What I got was a box full of miniatures that I'll be able to paint and I'll be able to use in D&D, and I'll be able to use all this stuff now that was just sitting around. Maybe, I play Zombicide Black. I play Black Plague and Green Horde. I enjoy it. My Massive Darkness one, because I didn't really enjoy the game, was just sitting around. I was using them as D&D miniatures. I painted some of them, used them whenever I needed the miniature represented something that we were playing in the campaign for D&D. But now I can use them in this game, right? So it's just, I wanted to be clear about that, right? It's hard. I don't think I'll ever really want to do more reviews. Like, I'm never going to do a review and give something a rating and a score. And I'm never going to, it's just something that I don't understand, right? It's not that I don't understand it. It's that I don't see how it would benefit someone to give it a rating if you know that what you're rating is not representative of what they'll get. And I had no interest in playing Massive Darkness 2, the base game, which is something that you could buy. Say you enjoy my video and you went out and you're like, man, I wish I could have that. I'm sorry. And I had no interest in playing that experience. Why would I? I didn't buy it for that reason. I don't suggest anybody buy it for that reason, right? Unless you want, I don't even know. It seems so minimalistic to me, right? Knowing it's like, I'm sure it's a good game, but I had no interest in playing it. So would it be fair for me to review the game? No, it wouldn't be. And that's why I wanted to make this video. The intro to it, the intro to my gameplay. So the next video, the part 2, is what I'll label it, which will start off gameplay. You could basically learn how to play it, right? It's also important to me that people who watch, I teach them how to play, right? They can learn. Maybe they want to watch the game, and they're learning from me. It's not the best representation, right? It's because I'm not using base game. I'm not even using heroes. I think I'm using a Zombicide hero and a Massive Darkness 1 expansion hero. So I'm not even using things that you could even get. But at least you learn the basics of it. But the most fun, I'm showing off what the game could be and was intended to be, right? Because that's what CMON sold it as. And so if you got the all-in pledge, and because you had Zombicide and you were looking for, does this stuff all work together? I can say, yes, it does, but pay super close attention to those wandering monsters, because they have some wonky rules that could touch multiple boxes. And if you're not using those boxes, then it's like you get the situation I did, where I don't have the cards available, and I just said, you know what, I'm just going to respawn this monster. Because I wasn't going to go look for it. Because I did it. So, again, but it's wacky. That's great, right? Who doesn't want some huge boss to show up that calls for like 3 different rules all over the place? That's amazing. To me, it's amazing. And had I been prepared for it, I would have gladly done it. I just didn't, because I was recording. And it was like, well, okay, this is already been like an hour and a half. I'm already an hour and a half in. I'm just going to go. I'm just going to just get this moving. So, Massive Darkness 2. I hope you enjoy it. Again, the way my not correct YouTube channel works, leave me comments or whatever. I'll gladly respond to them. And I'll see you in the gameplay videos.